absolutely tipped it down. The track went from dry to wet very quickly, but it just didn't stop. It wasn't like heavy rain, but it was consistent, and it just did not stop at all. There was no break. And then they delayed it for 3 hours, and again, we sat there the whole time, and almost out of hope rather than expectation, I guess, because we knew that the weather wasn't going to get any better. It was just getting darker. The clouds were getting they were more grey, and obviously visibility was just getting worse because with a Formula One car, if you're on the track, you can start to clear the standing water. But the more standing water there is, the harder they find. So the fact it was just coming down continuously and the track was just getting worse anyway. So the cars had no chance of clearing it.
Yeah. So what was that like for you as a fan? Were you in the grandstand, or were you on one of those grassy, perhaps more muddy mounds in the end of it? I mean, you sat there or stood there for hours trying to keep occupied in the pouring rain, like you say as well. That must have been quite an experience and perhaps a bit of an ordeal for you.
Yeah, we were on one of the muddy hills, which was quite an experience. I suppose we entertained ourselves. There was a lot of Dutch Max Verstappen fans. Obviously, it's quite a local race for the Dutch, I guess. So we were kind of just entertaining ourselves watching people fall down the muddy hill. But yeah, it was difficult. Obviously, we were just sitting there. There was no track action. There was no updates from Formula One. It was just, we're keeping an eye on it. We managed to find a stream of the Sky Sports F1 UK. So we were watching a bit of that just to see if they had any information. They didn't. They were the same as us. They didn't know anything either. But yeah, it was just trying to keep ourselves busy. The Dutch were quite a good laugh, to be fair. They were still setting off orange smoke bombs and playing loud music and trying to liven things up. So they kept it going a bit.
So the Dutch brought a bit of atmosphere, did they? So what did you do personally were you with your dad? What were you up to pass that time? Because it's so long and in that pouring rain as well.
Yeah, we didn't really do much. We just we had like a little parasol. So we were kind of camped under the parasol to keep dry. We didn't want to move too much because, one, we would have lost the spot where we were. We had quite a good spot on the hill. And two, we would have just got drenched completely. So we kind of just sat there. We were just chatting along and then trying to find out news. Occasionally, the medical car would go by trying to test the track. So that was about as much excitement as we got from it, really.
Because were you just there for the Sunday, or did you see qualifying as well?
No, we were there the whole weekend, yeah. So we came out here Thursday. So we had weekend tickets. So we saw practice on Friday and qualifying on Saturday as well.
I bet that was good then, seeing qualifying, and particularly George Russell from just down the road in Wisbech getting P2. That must have been crazy.
Yeah. That kind of came out of nowhere. Even the Dutch were kind of a bit... They weren't very happy that Verstappen took it off him because there was a lot of loud cheers when Russell went over the line and got P1. And then when Hamilton didn't beat him, obviously they worked in Verstappen's favour as well, so they were happy. But yeah, it was fair play to George. It was an incredible lap in the rain in difficult conditions. Like we saw Lando obviously stuck it in a wall quite heavily, so we knew that the track was difficult. But George did a really good job of it.
Yeah, and then getting a podium in the end of it as well from barely doing any no racing at all, was it? It was all behind the safety car, so it was quite a cruise to the podium for George Russell.
Yeah, as an F1 fan, I'm not sure whether personally I'd count it. I don't think Verstappen did the win. I don't think Russell and Hamilton deserved the podium as such, and I don't think Ricciardo, even as a Vettel fan, I don't think he deserves the points because there was no racing. But ultimately, he's got a reward for his good qualifying lap, which is great for him and for Williams because obviously Williams has struggled in recent years. But yeah, it's as a fan, you question whether it's really a podium, I guess.
Yeah. What did you make of it when the cars did come out for a couple more laps towards the end? Because there's a bit of controversy about that, because that's all that was needed for the race to get classified, wasn't it? And for there to be an official result. So it's a bit controversial sending the drivers out into those kind of conditions. But what was that like from a fan's perspective? Were you relieved to see the cars on the track at least?
Not really, because I think we knew the way it was going to go. I mean, my dad made a comment to me pretty much 10 minutes before that saying that if they're going to come out, they're going to do it for a commercial reason. And I think both Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel have spoken out about that since then, saying, they've only done it for the TV money, they've only done it for the contract money. And ultimately, that's what it is, I guess. They have contracts to fulfill. But I think when they said, we're going to go back out there, the conditions were probably worse than they were at 3 o'clock. So everyone there kind of, whilst there was a small cheer because we hoped something was going to happen, I think everyone there knew that it was going to be a couple of laps just to complete their contracts, and then that would be that.
Yeah, so overall, you must have been pretty gutted then, having turned up and waited for so long in the pouring rain and got no racing at all, just a few laps behind the safety car.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And then Spa is a very strange place to try and get out of. The car parks are just muddy fields, so we were kind of wedged in a muddy field as well. So it took us like an hour and a half to get out of that after a tractor pulled us out. So yeah, it wasn't a great day, but at least we enjoyed Friday and Saturday.
So first of all, you're stood on a muddy bank watching people fall over as your entertainment for the day instead of the racing, and then you have to get pulled out of there by a tractor in the end of it.
Yeah, we rented a Mini while we were out here, just to obviously get from where we're staying to the track, and the side of it was just completely covered in mud from where we tried to get out. We just had to find a car wash in Brussels so we could return it in a reasonable condition. So it wasn't. It's strange because when we were coming out, and once we'd actually got out of our area, you had just people walking in the middle of the road because they couldn't get anywhere else. And then they'd park cars down, just literally. If you came down London Road in Peterborough, there were just cars parked in the middle of the road as if it was the London Road in Peterborough. It was really bizarre.
So, I mean, overall then, pretty much a nightmare weekend almost, especially on such it was supposed to be such an occasion for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the Friday and the Saturday, we were really good. At the end of the day, I've seen an F1 car go full throttle around Spa, which is quite a sight in itself. The only thing we lacked was a full race, really.
Yeah, so will you be hoping to come back another time? Are you hoping for a refund from this weekend just gone? Because I know Lewis Hamilton was saying, the fans should get a refund.
Yeah, I think he's right. I know the F1 CEO, Stefano Domenicali, was saying that they're in talks with Spa about what they can do. We'll have to wait and see if they can do anything. We'll make sure we're in front of the queue to get it, but we don't know what it'll be. It'd be nice to come back one day, but I think we'll be checking the weather forecast to make sure it's a sunny one rather than a wet one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, do you feel particularly aggrieved this weekend that you've been denied the opportunity to watch some Sunday racing, or is that just a case of that's just how it is? You don't know what to expect from the weather.
I think I think us, and I was speaking to a Dutch guy who was pretty much the same. Where it's the case of if the race was called off because of bad weather at 3:30, 4 o'clock, people would have gone, it happens. If you're at an F1 race, the chances are what the F1 cars are like and how bad visibility can be for them. So you understand if, especially with the weather like it was, if it got called off, it got called off. I think what people are angry about, and myself and my dad included, were the way that F1 handled it. You only had to be there to know that the weather wasn't going to improve. And it had been constant since 12 o'clock. So we knew what the situation was. Ultimately, they've delayed it just to get their contractual part ticked off almost. So the fact they kept the fans hoping when they could have just, if they knew the situation, they could have sent the cars out at 3:30 and then just said, look, that's all we can do. It's not going to get any better. And it didn't stop raining in Spa till like 2 a.m. this morning. So there was no chance of it ever going to happen. So it's just the way F1 handled it more than the actual weather. If the weather called it off, fair enough. But F1 didn't cover themselves in any glory.
Yeah, it's strong, but that's your opinion. But I suppose the FIA's version of events was that, they were trying to give the race every opportunity they could of happening and ultimately pleasing the fans at the end of the day. But in your eyes, it was clearly just too dangerous from the start.
Yeah, and I think every fan there pretty much agreed, because there was, like I said, there was a Dutch guy next to me, and he was saying to his partner that this isn't going to happen, and there were numerous other people who were saying this weather's not going to stop, and there was a I don't know, I think it was German. He had a weather radar on his phone, and I know the FIA have, and the teams have their own weather radars, but every image we saw of it, it was just more and more rain and heavier rain. So what they saw, I don't know, but it just felt like they were almost mugging the fans off a bit. But I guess from one point of view is they were trying to get the race on, but I don't know, it just felt a bit of a sucker punch, really.
Yeah, well, I suppose what's your plan now for celebrating it was your 30th birthday, wasn't it? That's why you went. What's the plan now? Because you got a bit of making up to do.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we still had a trip to Belgium. I've been to Spa and kind of ticked off a dream there. I've seen an F1 car go full throttle around it. I've seen George Russell and the Williams get P2, which is quite something. So, we've seen a bit of Brussels, we've seen a bit of Liège. So I can't complain too much. It's still been a good present.
Yeah, so you're on your way back to Peterborough now, are you? Is it still raining?
It's currently raining, yeah. We're near Spa at the minute. Unsurprisingly, it's still raining, so even if they moved it to today, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, great to talk to you, Conor. Thanks for sparing a moment, and yeah, safe journey back. Hope you can get back in the warm and dry as soon as possible.
Thanks, Nathan. Take care.